Hello and good evening to you. Listen, the voices of Black women will not be silent. We are lifting up our voices to create and influence change, and we are doing that in unity and unapologetically. I want to welcome you to this edition. It's the African American History Month edition of the Healed People Women's Mental Wellness Virtual Summit. And tonight we are going to be discussing a very exciting and important topic, the state of Black women. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves and too far, let me introduce myself to you, those who may not be familiar with me. My name is Dr. Carla Cook. I am a global psychologist, speaker, author, and visionary of the Heal People movement. I want to encourage you to share this live, to tag a friend. I want to encourage you to make this time a priority for yourself. Stay engaged and ask the questions. So, why are we talking about the state of Black women? Well, every time around this year, organizations, agencies, the government, they host a institutional union or state of the union to discuss what are the important issues that institution, that organization is facing, as well as really talk about ways to go forward. What are some solutions that are going to be important? And so our goal during this time is to do the same as it relates to Black women, to talk about what are the wins, where are we shining, where are we doing well as areas for improvement. And we are also, our intention is to look at what are some steps, what are some strategies, what are some of the solutions and considerations that we want to make so that we can continue to progress, that we can continue to excel, that we can be emotionally and psychologically well and continue to evolve. We have so many gifts and talents, and the world is waiting for our touch and it's experiencing our touch. And so, this time together is an opportunity for us to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first and then help those around us. Listen, I have a group of amazing women that are here with me to discuss this topic. And so I want to bring them in. I want to introduce them. Let me first, here we go. I'm bringing to the stage to you Dr. Angela Clack. Dr. Clack, she is a wellness expert. She is an author and she is a therapist out of the state of New Jersey. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us this evening. I
Thank
am
you
bringing
so much.
to the stage, you're welcome. I am bringing to the stage Dr. Clarencia Shade. Dr. Shade, she is an ordained minister. She is a therapist. She's an author. And she is the owner and CEO of Gifts of Healing. Welcome and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I am bringing to the stage Belize Smith. Belize Smith is actually a Healed People ambassador. She is the CEO of Tried and True Financial Services. She is a financial literacy expert, and she is a enrolled agent. And so, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and share tonight. I'm looking forward to a fruitful discussion.
Excellent. And last but not least, we have Dr. Cassandra Miner. She is a gastroenterologist. She has been in the field for 25 years as having expertise in this area. And she is a resident of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so I want to thank each of these experts that I have brought who are going to have this conversation with us tonight, and each coming from a different angle, a different perspective. Dr. Clack, she'll be talking from the emotional dimension, Dr. Shade from the spiritual dimension, Valise from the financial dimension, and Dr. Miner from the physical dimension. Okay, when she gets back, she'll be talking from that. So listen, we are going to jump right in. And so as I was doing the introduction, I was talking about this state of Black women, and normally states of the union really highlight what the agency is doing well, what's going well. And so I want to pose that question to each of you from your various perspectives. When you think about the state of Black women, what are the wins? What is going well? Let me first ask Dr. Clack. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think what is going well is us getting the information out there around Black women seeking mental health services. So we know historically, for lots of reasons, there's been a stigma around seeking help, but also for Black women asking for help. I know I can speak for my practice, my colleagues' practice. We've been full since the pandemic. It hasn't stopped for most of us. And so while we continue to try to meet the needs of the women, we realize that I know primarily 98% of my population that I treat are Black women. So I know that they are reaching out for help. So we are winning in that space with more and more Black women no longer feeling the anxiety around being labeled or seen as weak or vulnerable for asking for help.
That is so important, and you're absolutely right. I'm seeing the same thing. I think those of us that are in this field of mental health definitely are seeing the numbers, and the demand is significant. And you're absolutely right. That is a wonderful thing. Let me turn to Valise. Can you talk a little bit from your perspective? What are the wins?
Yes, and I love what Dr. Clack said as far as women seeking help in that space. And I think we all serve from a place of being servant leaders and helping women in certain areas. And from my perspective in the finance space, of course, we're seeing women start businesses at record highs. And so that's going well. And so that's creating a huge demand for the services that I provide, helping entrepreneurs, educating them on the ABCs of finance to simplify their accounting, budgeting, and credit processes, because we are phenomenal women, and we do a lot of things well. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the things that we do well, we're so inventive and ingenuitive, and we start businesses in so many different areas, but we don't necessarily all know about how to handle our finances well. And so the fact that we are not allowing that to stop us, and we're moving forward and starting businesses and leading in so many different areas, is what I'm seeing going well in my space.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And Dr. Miner, can you talk a little bit about the healthcare, the physical realm? I know her connection, she was having a bit of an issue. So if she doesn't, actually, we'll double back to her. And Dr. Shade, can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Well, I think that women in spirituality, Black women in particular, has soared through the roof. We have more women graduating formal education in seminary than ever before. And they are, despite obstacles and despite the opinions of some people in denominations, they are rapidly becoming senior pastors, taking the lead, taking the baton, moving forward. And I think even those that are not formally trained are basically becoming more aware of their spirituality and their soul, the state of their soul, how they're really doing. You know, not so much on the job. They're soaring. We're breaking glass ceilings. We're being named to positions that we never dreamt of. However, we still have to think about, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a servant leader, I'm head of the PTA and the PTO. And so it becomes complicated when we try to balance all those things. And one of my main messages that, you know, we just did a workshop last month is redefining strong, because I feel as though the messages we've gotten from some of our ancestors may be a little mixed, especially for the time for today. So all of those things are going well. Women are listening. They are investing in therapy, and clergy also need therapy. And so it's burgeoning, it's growing. And I think that those are the wins, that despite the stigma, they're hanging in there and they're busting down walls.
Absolutely. I mean, you said so many things, so many powerful things. I can only imagine that the listening audience is chewing on all of this information that you ladies are giving. Let me turn now to Dr. Miner. Can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, healthcare physically? What are some of the wins? What's going well for Black women?
That to
Yeah, your connection. You probably are talking, but your connection. I don't know if you're on the phone. If you're on the phone,
was
you could take your Wi-Fi
to
off.
me,
That may help. Or no, you're on the
Carla.
laptop. Yes,
Yeah, it's
you're in and out. I don't know if you have a hotspot. If you have a hotspot, maybe you could turn that on,
not
or
on.
no, or change
Maybe I need to
location.
go. From a healthcare standpoint, about uh,
No, you're going in and out. We're not able to hear you.
we'll try that.
Listen, as we are working out the technical difficulties, we thank you for being here, for coming in. Why don't you go ahead and share this live, tag a friend, ask your questions right in the bottom. We'll be acknowledging a number of the questions that you have. Okay, she's moving. Natasha, we
Is this
see you
better?
here. Thank you so much. Maya, thank you so much. Tiffany, thank you for joining. And your sister, Ayana, is on. Dr. Miner, Pastor Ayana. Hey. Okay, let's try it again.
So the question was, what are the
So,
wins
yeah,
that we're
talk a
having
little
in
bit
the
about some of the wins, some of the highlights. What's going well in the area of healthcare physically?
Well, you know, when we just take our historical context in this country in terms of arriving here as slaves and the healthcare we had at that point, and here we are, you know, more than 100 years later, we're definitely improved. We have obviously better jobs, better income. Specifically, colon cancer risk is higher than among whites, but has improved for Blacks in the past 20 years. Also, the risk of heart disease has gone down in the past 10 years or so. So, you know, as we make more money, are able to make better choices in our diet, we can have a greater impact on our health. And we're seeing that over time, but it's just going to take a while to catch up.
That is really good news in terms of the lower rate of colon cancer. I had not heard that before. And so that is excellent news. So,
Yeah,
you know, as we are here, we're coming, you know, this is a vast topic. We don't really have the time to look and dig deeply into politics or education, you know, so many different areas, but we can really focus on the dimensions that we're talking about. One of the things I started to think a little bit about, and I found this document, and the link will be right in the comments, but it is the status of Black women. And in 2016, the Institute for Women for Women Policy Research, they did the first of its kind status of Black women, pulling together all of the different data and looking from a number of different perspectives: politics, employment, family, poverty, health, violence, safety, and really looking at what is essentially the state of Black women. And there were three areas, two of you mentioned them, that really stood out to me, that were highlighted. One, Black women vote in record numbers and have been doing so for the last number of years. The other thing is that Black women are getting degreed, returning, getting bachelor's, getting graduate level degrees. And as Dr. Shade mentioned, and then Valise, you mentioned about the starting businesses. And they started businesses increased by 178%. And so these are all wins. What I started to think about, many of our wins come out of a place of need, out of a place of necessity, out of a place of pain. So it's kind of like there's two sides of this coin. And so I want to look at that a little bit with this next question. And that is really, let's begin to talk about, okay, so what are some of the challenges? And since we're going to look at the challenges, let's also offer, what are some considerations? What are some next steps? What are those that are listening in? Where should they be putting their efforts and leaning in towards as a way to really begin to, progress and evolve and be even in better states? And so let me turn that question first to, let's go with Dr. Shade.
Yeah, I think you've said it very well, but I think one of the things we can offer is to help Black women understand how to slow down. The cost of their success is actually burdensome to their lifestyle. So in other words, late nights, early mornings, weekends, they're not understanding how to rest. And so I think even with spirituality, you have to begin to say, God is with me, but I at the same time need to be with him. And so we have to get to a place where we don't work so hard that we burn out, that we don't have time for spiritual care, we don't have time for Sabbath and rest, and we don't take seriously the need to have that. These wonderful six-figure golden handcuff jobs come with a lot of demands, and a lot of the things are after hours and on weekends. And if they have children, it's a drain. And so I think helping them to reevaluate and reassess what is most important. How can we divide this 24 hours better, more evenly, so that I can be a whole, happy human and be balanced? So I think that's what we have to begin to stress for them, is that everybody can have it all, but maybe not all at the same time. And that they need to reassess based on their marriages or their divorces, the lack of, partners helping them to raise children. I was great when I was in my 20s, maybe okay in my 30s, but I'm in late 30s, early 40s. I need to rethink these strategies. So that's what I would say.
The ministry of rest for ourselves. And I loved what you had said in your opening remarks. You talked about redefining strong.
Yes.
And I think that connects to what you were talking about. When we look at strong, what does that mean? Because it means something different to each of us. And strong can mean I prioritize myself. That means I'm strong. I can unplug because I'm strong. I can rest because I'm strong. And because I know that I need to be okay to really show up and to function and to do the things that God has put in my hand, to really be able to move in purpose, on purpose. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Rest.
But some of the things we have to challenge is that our grandmothers and great grandmothers were responding to strong out of colonization. And it meant never stop, never give up, keep going, you're okay. And so we're in a mixed message era where it's hard to define which one is strong and which one is weakness. And I think that that's a discussion we have to have ongoing.
You know, as you're talking about that, it makes me think about the intergenerational trauma, what's been passed down and what's been wired within us, you know, physiologically, as well as that, what have we learned just from watching. And so, with that being said, I want to turn to Dr. Clapp. As you begin to look at this area of, you know, emotional health, can you talk a little bit from your perspective around the challenges and then offer some steps and considerations?
Sure. So Dr. Shade took the words right out of my mouth that Black women, we still aren't resting. And so we talk about eliminating and fighting against the strong Black woman trope and myth, and but yet we still are working ourselves in those spaces until we're burning out and not sleeping, which people don't realize when you don't sleep, that can turn into a mental health crisis. And so one of the things that I would piggyback on is what Dr. Shade around sleep. The other thing, since we've covered that, is the intersection of race and gender for Black women, particularly in workspaces where daily there's the assault on our psyche around micro and macroaggressions and micro insults and invalidations in spaces where we're one of or maybe few, and there's a lack of support by institutions and facilities. So we feel very isolated and very alone. And what I'm finding is it's starting to silence Black women. And when we go silent, we don't reach out for help because now we think it's something we did. We start to internalize this as something we're doing wrong. So in terms of solutions, we need community. We need conversations like this to continue because Black women need to see Black women having these conversations centered around that sense of isolation, what it feels like to be belittled and humiliated in front of colleagues, what it feels like to be told you don't measure up or you're overlooked for promotions, all of these things. That's where a lot of the women that I'm seeing in therapy now are coming for. They are attacked at work. Why? Because since the pandemic, they were working from home. Now they're back in the building. And we're back in those spaces where people can say and look and do all kinds of things very boldly. So I unapologetically continue to assert that there are no safe spaces for Black women except the ones we create. And that's because we have a little bit more control over who we allow in our space and who we do not want in our space by how we set boundaries. So I know I said a lot, but I wanted to get it all in there.
Well, you got it in, and you said some very important things, some key things. You know, when you talked about us creating these spaces, I thought about it, took me to, you know, times of segregation, right? Where we were isolated in our own communities, had our own stores, had our own schools, and not necessarily downing segregation, but we do understand that there was a loss of control, that even what we could teach, and we see the assault against curriculums and what we're able to teach our children in public schools, you know, that's being attacked. How we wear our hair, you know, that's being attacked. And when we were in community where we were authorized and had the authority and the responsibility, because it was just us to do those teaching, you know, to teach and to instruct and to go to the corner store and mom and dad, you know, talk to the kids and say, get off the corner or, you know, pull your pants up. And it was all right. So, I mean, you said a mouthful. The other thing I do want to highlight too, you talked about, which is connected, actually the same thing, creating the spaces, having these spaces for these conversations. And I want to just highlight for the women that may be listening in, I want to invite you to become a part of the Healed People Women's Healed Hub. And there'll be a link right in the comments. We would love to have you there and continue these conversations, but not just conversations, but offer you some of the support and some of the steps and strategies to continue to show up and be well. And with that said, Dr. Clack, as you were talking, and even, you know, Dr. Shade, it made me think about the stressors and how stress doesn't just impact us emotionally, but it impacts our health. And so I want to then turn to Dr. Miner and talk a little bit about the challenges and what are some steps, what are some next steps and considerations for those listening in. Okay, looks like possibly she's frozen, not possibly.
Well,
Absolutely.
unfortunately, I do think
Oh, wait,
the
I heard you. Let's.
connection is still a little bit bad.
Dr. Miner, you're in and out. So I want to let me go to Valise because financially there's a lot of stress financially as well for some of us, not all of us. Some of us are doing quite well, financially. But can you talk a little bit from your perspective about what are some of the challenges and what are some considerations, solutions, next steps? And Valise, you're out as well. Valise is out as well. So let me see. I see Dr. Miner. Okay, Dr. Miner, you're back. Let's
I
see if
don't
we
know
can
what
hear
to
you.
say.
Oh, I hear you.
Think
I
I'm
hear
in
you
that
now.
without IP. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? For like
Yes.
a second.
You're supposed to.
What I
You're
wanted to
supposed to be
say.
here. That's why. That's why there's such a problem. We need your voice. So just talk a little bit
We never
about.
give up.
That's right.
Oh,
Some of the challenges as well as, some considerations, next step solutions. Oh, wow.
the main thing from us, find a primary physician that you're comfortable with and to see that you
Yep, you're in and out
to
again.
your same hair salon. When you try to get urgent care or room, miss day. I'm out still.
Yeah, you're going in and out. Uh-huh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's try again. I hear you. But you're in and out, actually.
Okay. I think the phone might have got thing. Okay. I was just
We're going to be
the
patient.
need to get a primary care physician who needs things done, and saying that is just as important with stick your same hairstylist or your same nail salon. Things don't get missed when you ship. And there's Black women, Black men, plenty of physicians out there. Of course, another thing is diet, exercise, limit alcohol, limiting tobacco. Diet has a big role in terms of the impact of obesity and all these health issues that I mentioned, including heart disease and diabetes and high blood pressure and colon cancer risk. So establishing with a physician for your daily, yearly care will go a long way to continue to reduce the gap in the outcomes that we see among Black women and white women with regards to health.
That is solid advice. And the fact that you said kind of have a long-term relationship with someone like we do with our hair, with our nails, right? Not just jump from person to person. I was looking at some research a while ago, and it's just coming back to me. And it noted that Black women are actually more likely to tell their primary care physician that they're having anxiety or depression. Like that's kind of one of the first places that they turn. And so clearly we value our healthcare professionals, that the medical professional, and to have someone who can direct us and who can refer us is important. If that's going to be an area of comfort, right? It's the physician, it's the pastor. And so, yeah, it's so important to make those connections and have those connections so that we can continue to be well. So thank you for that. And Valish, you're back with us. And can you talk a little bit about, from your perspective, the challenges and the needs at this point?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
All right, awesome. Well, I just want to say that so many good nugget gems have been shared today, just about the stress that we carry, about making sure that we have a safe space to share, to make sure that we have, I think I saw it in the comments, community, and have transparent conversations. And all of this is prevalent even in the financial services space where I operate when it comes to supporting women in business with their finances, with their accounting, with their budgeting, their credit. And a lot of times we wear this woman feeling like we can do it all. We have it under control, and make dollars. Dr. Shay said, the 6-figure golden cups, and we show up like we have it all together. But the reality of it is our books are a mess. We don't have our finances together. We don't have our financials up to date. We're not operating in a budget. Coming in, even out quicker than we can blink. But we put on, our face, and we go out there and we strut our stuff, and we keep going and we keep going and we keep going until the inevitable happens. And so the reality is that Dr. Carla, that you have to get some help. One thing I always tell people in this space is do what you do best and delegate the rest. And so you have to delegate. If finances is not your strong suit and you're operating your business in another space, then make sure that you hire a good accountant. Make sure that you vetted that person and you have an accountant to sit at the table, help you make some of the financial decisions to take the burden off. Delegation does not mean that you dump and go and you just leave it to them, but you want them to have a seat at the table. You want to bring them in on those conversations so that they can help come up with some tax strategies to help lower your tax bill or to make sure that you're not overpaying in your taxes. You will make sure that they have some insight to your books and that they can help do the critical financial statements that you to get whatever it is you need to get to the level. So those are some of the things that I'm seeing in this space that we need to do better at.
I love that. I love what you do. You inundate us with information about financial literacy. And it is so, so important. You and I did a live actually this week, and you had asked me, about, even for myself, how do I deal with the ABCs that you teach of finance? And I said, it's a 4-letter word: help, that we need help. And I think this is what you're saying as Black women, when it comes to our finances, let's connect with someone who can help us. Traditionally, we know all of the data looks at the fact that women and Black women usually relegate, like if we're in a marriage, may not even have a handle on the finances or know what's going on with the finances. And so it's important for us to, be more assertive and be in the know for that. We know many things have happened at the end of the day. We thought that things were in a certain order, and they were not. So thank you so much for that. And someone says, yes, strategy and delegation, strategy and delegation. Listen,
Absolutely.
we have had an amazing conversation. We could go on. There's so much to talk about, as we look at the state of Black women. We have looked at some of the wins. Where are we doing well? And we've looked at areas where improvement is needed and offered some strategies, offered some solutions, offered some considerations. It is all of our hopes and our prayers that something that has been said, that you will take away and not just listen to it, but implement it. Even if it's one thing, to move on that one thing. So that, again, as I talked about in the beginning, so that we can progress, that we can continue to excel, that we can be emotionally and psychologically well. In the opening comments, I talked about the fact that as Black women, we will not be silenced. I think, Dr. Clack, you talked about sometimes we feel silent when we're in spaces where we are alone. But I started thinking about, if you're on LinkedIn, my goodness, the voices on LinkedIn. No, we're not going to be silent, and we're speaking up unapologetically. So let's keep speaking up. Let's keep showing up. Let's keep going higher, and let's connect so that we're not in this thing alone. Listen, I have some phenomenal women sitting at the virtual stage, and I want you to know how to stay connected with them. And so as we just kind of go around and let the listening audience know, how can they connect with you, Dr. Clack?
Sure. So my website is www.clackassociates.com. I put a lot of content in IG. So at IG, it is at Dr. Angela Clack Speaks. And then Facebook is at Clack Angela.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for your work. I see what you're doing, and you are helping. You are helping Black women. So thank you so much. And Dr. Shade?
Yes, on IG, you can find me at Dr. That's Dr. Clarencia, CLARENCIA _ Shade. You can also find me on the web with Gifts of Healing, which is the name of my company. And of course, my name on Facebook, Clarencia Shade. I'm right there if you need to get in touch with me. So I look forward to having more conversations with this group and with other women. Very powerful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here again. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for your work. Thank you for all that you do to create safe spaces for Black women. And Valise?
Yes, my website is www.tryandfs.com. And from there, you can find me on many social media platforms. I can be found on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. If you just search my name, I will come up. But you can also have a personal as well as a business page, Tried and True Financial Services. Thank you much again for having me.
Thank you. Nothing but love for you, all that you do. You're constantly out there speaking about financial literacy. You're constantly giving this information away. Definitely everyone needs to connect with you. And Dr. Mina, thank you so much for being here. I don't know if you wanted to share any final words or anything before we end. If your internet is going to let you be great.
Oh, it never fails. Never fails. But I appreciate you having me tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for what you do. You know, I'm just kind of thinking about, we're talking about being in spaces and the isolation sometimes that we feel. And I know, you know, even for psychologists, for therapists that are Black, there's a small percentage. I think the statistics are 4%. But as a medical doctor and in your field, I would imagine it's less than 1%, in your particular area of specialty. So we lift you up, and we, you know, encourage you to continue to run on in what you are doing. Listen, we want to thank you so very much for participating. For me, please follow me on all links at Dr. Carla J. Cook. I have an invitation in the comments for you to join the Heal Women Hub. And then I also have a free women's mental wellness curriculum that is also in the comments that I would love to put in your hands. Stay connected with us. Next month, we will be back. You are not going to want to miss next month, My Sister's Keeper. I'm going to keep it right there. Look out for all that will be coming, promotional materials around that, and look forward to staying connected with you. Thank you, Lauren. This summit needs to continue. Looking forward to more, and we're going to give it to you. God bless each of you. Thank you to each of the speakers that were here tonight. Have a great, phenomenal rest of the night, and let's go upward and onward.
Yeah.